I'm Nick Boy, and this is Ask Pocket. Now, it's been a while since we've done one of these, so we've got quite a few questions to get through. So let's start with this first one from Brett the Questioner. Just saw your review of Fallout 4 and looks good, but I have played other big open world Bethesda games before, and there is always a very long load time, especially the longer you play them. Is this an issue in Fallout 4? I stopped playing Skyrim because it was taking 40 seconds to 2 minutes to get through a door. Thanks, hope to hear back from you. Brett, thanks for writing in. Look, the short and frustrating answer to your question is yes, although it is hardware dependent. The longer answer requires a bit more explanation. Open world games do have a tendency to take a while to load because of the sheer amount of detail they have sitting in your RAM. However, the techniques to navigate this problem are pretty sophisticated these days. When you're traveling through an open world, the engine is clever enough to control the level of detail around you, so it only needs to use just enough of your system's memory to make sure the world exists in front of you. It's basically the tree falling in the woods scenario. The game doesn't exist until you're standing in it, and Bethesda are an ambitious studio, sometimes to their detriment. They create entirely persistent worlds, which means that if you drop a stick of Wonder Glue in the basement of a super mutant lab on one side of the wasteland, it will still be there when you come back 30 hours later. On one hand, this gives the game world a sense of groundedness and makes the experience more immersive, but on the other hand, just by playing the game, you unavoidably fill up the world with extra data that the game has to load. Anecdotally, around the office, people who are playing on PS4 say they have wait times of about 30 seconds, and they just get longer the more time that they do play. Apparently, deleting redundant game saves can speed up the process, but that's still a painful wait time, particularly if you have to endure it post-death. However, I am playing on a pretty hefty PC with SSDs, and I rarely have a load time longer than about 5 seconds, so it does appear that the more powerful the hardware you're on, the less your load time will be. Our next question comes in from Philip Men. Why hasn't at least one of the several dozen episodes of QI broadcast each week on ABC TV been replaced by GG Pocket? Philip, allow me to answer your question with another question. Why aren't you head of scheduling for the entire ABC? Our next question comes in from Jack, who wants to know, is there going to be any Star Wars games coming out in 2016? Hey Jack, look, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that at some point on some platform at some time in 2016, we will see a Star Wars game. Hell, at this point, EA are dropping a Star Wars game a week, with Battlefront coming out last week and RPG Galaxy of Heroes dropping this week. The money-making machine that is Star Wars is in overdrive right now. That said, there are no games currently slated for release in 2016. One thing we know for sure is there will be a bunch of paid extra content dropping for Star Wars Battlefront. DICE has announced that the first of its 4 downloadable content packs will arrive in early 2016. It costs nearly as much as the actual game, so that kinda counts. We also know that Visceral Games, the studio behind the Dead Space series, are working on a Star Wars game with former Uncharted writer Amy Hennig on the team. It's hard to imagine anything bad coming from that combo, but with so little information about the game right now, I doubt it's going to launch next year. However, with The Force Awakens coming out in December and with the Rogue One film due later next year, I'd be very surprised if we don't see something new drop from EA. Even if it is just a trading card gem-matching shooter for the Nokia N-Gage. Moving on, and Simon Vin wants to know, should I vote for Hex or Barjo for the Logies? I'd totally vote for Nick Boy though, if I could. Yes, Barjo and Hex are nominated for a Logie this year, and poor little Nick Boy missed out. While I normally wouldn't encourage any interaction with TV Week, we should definitely start petitioning for a Best Internet Personality category for next year's awards. So jump on here and send them an email with the subject Logie for Best Internet Personality and attach a picture of yours truly. Maybe this one. There's a link to that picture in the description below. And while they're at it, maybe they should change up the little Logie person to have a bit more personality. Maybe a little something like this. I like it. But while we wait for that category to be added and those new statues to be made, let's get back to the business of the people who are actually nominated, Barjo and Hex. And who should you vote for? I can't tell you. Nobody can tell you who to vote for, you just gotta go with your heart. Just don't vote for Alex Perry.
She looks trashed.
Yeah, she does.
Looks like she's been at like Ark, rolled out, dragged something through her hair and come here. She doesn't look fresh at all.
Moving on, and our final question comes from Sorta Curious 288. Hi Nick Boy, I'm just wondering if you're naturally high energy or if you have to amp yourself up before you go on camera. Do you find it tiring or energizing to talk for a long time? You intrigue me. Sorta Curious, did you choose that name specifically for this question, or are you just perpetually sorta curious? Regardless, it is a good question. I don't have to amp myself up before I start performing. I can turn this on at any time. It's what makes me prime material for the first annual Gold Nick Boy. As for when I'm not on camera at work, I'm still relatively high energy, but I'm not like crazy bouncing off the walls or anything. My work wife Peter Burns would describe me as tolerable. I try to keep things light and fun, but if you've seen me talk about pretty much anything other than video games, you'll know I can turn on the serious pretty quickly. But like all great performers of our time, your Stephen Colbert's, your Louis C.K.'s, your Koshis, my on-screen persona is actually just a heightened version of my real personality. It's kind of like you need a certain amount of personality to do anything in life, right? And so when I'm on camera or doing a live show or something, I pull back on the more introverted personal side, and so I need to ramp up the rest of me. You know, the louder, more boisterous, judgmental, cocky, handsome side. As for talking for long periods of time, I find it completely energizing when I do it, but then afterwards I need to curl up in a hole. Actually, most of my life is spent curled up all introverted and private, interspersed only by moments of extreme public attention and showmanship. It's what makes me prime material for the first annual Gold Nick Boy. And that's it for today's episode of Ask Pocket. Got a question? Send it to my pocket here or tweet me here. Or if you're more artistically inclined, maybe you could do a total oil painting of me like 8-Bit Booty did. Until tomorrow, Nick Boy out. Where am I gonna hang this? John, give me your face. Yeah, you're pretty now.